I wish I'd known when I got to the 65 and reached retirement age as such, and was able to draw Social Security at 66. I wish I'd known some of the things that we talk about now, but they weren't available to us, and now they are.
Well, more and more, we are seeing people who have transitioned into retirement realize that the way we've arranged our affairs actually works against us in retirement. The problem is we only make that transition once. There's no do-over. So we really need to rethink the way that we are handling several of the pillars of sound planning. And to help us with that, here today on the program, Financial Focus, is, of course, the president and founder of GulfCoast Financial Services. He is John Kuykendall. Now, GulfCoast Financial Services had been named Best of the Best in Financial Services 11 straight years and running, concurrent by the readers of the Lake City Reporter. So a source of good, sound guidance on how to think about your affairs, your financial matters, your investments, your retirement planning. John, we always appreciate the perspective and helping us stay financially focused. Are you seeing a lot of people the day, the month, the years after they retire sort of look back and say, I wish I had known then what I know now?
Oh yeah, Peter. I think I'm one of those. I wish I'd known when I got to the 65 and reached retirement age as such, and was able to draw Social Security at 66. I wish I'd known some of the things that we talk about now, but they weren't available to us, and now they are. And anyone that doesn't take advantage of that financially focused income plan, it's it's on them, because we have the material, we have the software, we have the knowledge now that we never had before, Peter.
So it's not that we should be kicking ourselves for missing these opportunities. They
No.
just didn't exist. Some of the tools that we'll be talking about today were not present during the vast majority of the working career of most people who are retired or transitioning to retirement. But it is time to rethink our paradigm and the way that we have been doing things and the status quo, specifically when it comes to these five essential pillars of planning. And John, you're a big fan of that financially focused written retirement plan, which specifically addresses income, investments, taxes, healthcare, and legacy. And those are the pillars that everyone should have a plan that addresses. Most of the people that you talk to, I imagine, during their working career have done a pretty good job in a couple or a few of those pillars. But I also imagine that there are several that unfortunately get overlooked, or we may have even arranged our affairs in a way that works against us later in life in retirement.
Well, Peter, when we're working, we're really not taught how to retire or what it's going to be like or how we're going to handle healthcare. While we're working, we've got a salary, a paycheck, and that paycheck is coming in every pay period, and it's taking care of our bills. We're saving a little money. We've got health care with our employer or through the exchange now. And so we don't really think about, how am I going to handle Medicare? How am I going to handle Social Security? How am I going to get my income? And income is one of the most things that's important to people. I talked to a couple this morning, and we're looking at the ex-wife's husband passed away, and he'd been giving her a certain amount of money each month. And so, how are we going to replace that money with a life insurance policy that he had, so that we can make sure that she has consistent, predictable income, just like we have when we get a paycheck? And that's one of the biggest problems, Peter, is figuring out, how am I going to get that income each month? How am I going to pay my bills? And am I going to live too long so that I outlive my income?
The income and the investments, John, they have this yin and yang codependency, right? Is that most of us don't build the investment portfolio without first and foremost having an income. And not that it's easy, but during our working career, we show up to work And that is our income plan, right?
Yeah.
And we put in our time, we trade our time for money, and it supports our ability to invest, and we build the investment plan. And then all of a sudden there's this 180 where these two things switch the day after retirement. And now the investment plan has to support the income that we need. And that's the part that I think we have not been taught or planned and understand what it takes to make that flip and that transition.
Yeah, it's a hard thing for people to understand. And like you said, we're not taught, we're not educated on how to do this. A very good friend of mine who is very educated called me the day after he retired and he said, John, okay, I quit my job. I'm now retired. How am I going to get my money? And so I had to sit down and explain to him that, the money that you've saved up all those years, we're going to take a percentage of that and we're going to put it in your checking account each month. That is your retirement income. And so, it's like everything else. We have to budget and be careful with it. But people aren't taught this transition from, working to being retired. And it can't be a situation, Peter, where I'm so free that I'm going to spend all my money the first year and then have to go back to work because I don't have any money.
Yeah.
So it's got to be planned out. And we aren't taught financially how to do that.
Well, I mean, and it sounds simple. Well, we need income,
Yeah.
just take it out of our investments. But here's where things start to get complicated and where we're seeing a lot of people sort of rethinking how they've set things up and how we've been taught to arrange our affairs in a way that begins to work against us in retirement. Because, John, when we pull money out of investments, there's tax implications, right? So pillar number 3 is taxes. And for many of us, for the majority of our career, those taxes have put us in a place where we are paying the most in taxes in retirement. We have set ourselves up to pay more in taxes because of how we have saved and invested, which then cascades into how much we pay for healthcare and ultimately the kind of legacy that we leave behind. So let's dive in here and let's talk about the pillar of taxes and why we may need to not only rethink the way we're setting ourselves up, but actually look at this as a moment and realize this opportunity that we have in front of us.
Well, Peter, you mentioned a couple of things. One of the things is that we have this tax time bomb. If you retire with $1 million in a IRA or 401k, you really don't have $1 million. You have about 700,000 because 30% of it belongs to the government. You might as well go ahead and figure that. And so it just complicates it in retirement because what we've done is while we're working and we have the ability to pay those taxes, we get all glad that we have deferred them and I'm not paying them. But then later it comes back and hits us. And so now I have to worry about how much income I have, how much I take out. Every time I take money out of my retirement accounts, my IRAs, 401ks, it's income. And so that income, the total amount of income that we have, affects Medicare, as you said. How much am I going to pay for my Part B? The other thing is the new tax law has this $6,000 per individual for seniors, $12,000 that gets phased out based on income. So there are all kinds of traps that are laid out for us. And so we have to figure out how we're going to pay our taxes on all this money that we've deferred, Roth conversions, how we time our RMDs. Maybe we should take our RMDs early and then or that amount out early and pay the taxes on it before we get to Medicare and RMD age. And so required minimum distribution. So there are a lot of things that are in play here, and we really don't know what we're doing with it unless we sit down and look at taxes, how we're going to plan, and how much of a Roth conversion can we do every year so that we don't hit the next tax level and keep our taxes low.
Because there's a ripple effect there. When we
Oh,
start
yeah.
getting into creating this income and the taxation that's involved, it's not just the taxation, it's the impact that it has on Social Security. It's the impact that it has on healthcare and Medicare premiums.
Yeah.
And the government's not ignoring the way that they can collect revenue, John. They're looking at that IRMA surcharge saying, hey, that's working over there. Why don't we
Yeah.
apply it in other places, right?
Yeah, and they will, and they have. And so there are all kinds of penalties that are looking at us that we have to be careful. You know, I had a client one time that came in and said, "Okay, I'm going to take 200,000 out of my account and pay off my house." And I said, well, "Wait a minute, let's think about this. It's your money. You bet it's my money. I can do anything I want to with it." Yeah, you can, but you're going to pay taxes on that. What tax bracket is it going to put you in? And what other things are we going to be penalized for because you did that?
Yeah. The compounding effect. It's not just the single whammy of now realizing deferred taxes. It's what else it can do. And we've got this progressive tax system. So the more income you have, the more you pay in taxes. John, we
Yep.
always knew it was a pay me now or pay me later arrangement. And for the majority of our careers, we have chosen the pay me later, but the IRS controls that rate and those brackets and
Yeah.
ultimately has a controlling interest in the amount of money that they get to pull for taxes. So again, it's not that we've made a mistake because tax rates and brackets have come down over the course of the last 30 to 40 years. But we are at a historically low place. And so if we've got a plan that addresses income and investments, but is completely ignoring taxes, aren't we overlooking one of our best opportunities? And don't we need to address that?
Well, that's right, Peter. We have to do the best job we can with taxes. And so we don't want to pay any more taxes to Uncle Sam than we have to. We want to pay our share. But like you said, Peter, there are so many other things that get triggered based upon the income we have. We can't just make as much as we want. I mean, there's just so many things. Up to 85% of your Social Security is still subject to taxes. And so the more we make, the more we're going to pay on our Social Security that we draw. There's just so many things that we have to be careful of that we need to do that now. But Peter, one of the I think one of the best things that we get in retirement so far hadn't changed, but we know very little about is healthcare. Healthcare, and we can have tremendous healthcare as seniors if we plan it right. But we only get one shot. We get one shot at fixing up our plan based upon our insurability or whether we're uninsured or not, or sure. But after that, everything's subject to insurability and subject to the insurance company accepting us. So we need to make sure that we do the best job we can picking our supplements, picking what plan we want, and getting that coverage to cover the gaps. It's very important that we do the best job. Peter, I've had a hip replacement, a knee replacement, two back surgeries. Luckily, they haven't touched my brain yet, but all of that's been covered by Medicare, and you can't but find better coverage than that. And we just need it. Cost me a lot in premium, but it's well worth it in the long run because the older I get, the more I need it. But we don't really, in school and during work, we don't have classes on what's going to happen when you retire, how you're going to take Social Security and maximize it, how are you going to take health care and maximize it, how are you going to take taxes and minimize them, and how are you going to set up your guaranteed income that's going to come in every month.
Well, again, the pillars of planning. Income is the first one. That's what our lifestyle is based on. It
Yeah.
supports us. The investments create the income, but also create taxes, which can impact what we pay for healthcare. And then finally, John, legacy. And I can hear a lot of people out there listening or watching the show saying, well, I don't really care if I leave much of a legacy behind. Not a selfish notion at all. But if you have addressed these other pillars and feel confident in your lasting lifetime financial well-being and stability, then more than likely something is going to be left behind. And we don't want to leave the IRS as our largest beneficiary. And ultimately, John, without proper and proactive planning, there's a good chance that that is indeed the case, that the IRS could be a large percentage recipient, if not the largest, of our wealth if we have not planned proactively.
Well, that's right, Peter. And also just think of the legal cost and all the turmoil and confusion and hard feelings that are felt within the family. I mean, we need to make sure that we have, when I look at legacy, I don't look at how much money I'm going to leave behind. I look at how am I setting up my estate so that my kids and my spouse has the least confusion and the least they have to do, worry, getting the assets to where they need to be with the least amount of cost, the least amount of court cost. Those are the things we look at. 10 or 15 years ago, people come in and you'd ask them, well, what are your goals? Well, I want to live a retirement life, but I really want to leave money to the grandkids and the kids. And the ones that come in now, they say, well, we want to have a good retirement. And if anything's left over at the end, that's great. But it's not so much about what I leave in dollars and cents, but how I live my retirement so that I'm still independent and I can go through life, my retirement, and not cost my kids any money.
Again, the way we've been taught to arrange our affairs actually work against this goal, though, as more and more from the modern school of retirement, using 401ks and IRAs and other tax deferred accounts as they actually retire and transition to retirement. We are realizing that certain benefits we took advantage of during our working career, John, work against optimizing our affairs after retirement, make it more expensive, higher taxes, higher healthcare costs, more to the IRS ultimately. So now is this moment in time. And I know that we've talked recently on the program about the passage of the big, beautiful bill and the locking in of these lower tax rates. They may not last forever. They may not be as permanent as they like to have made them out. So right now is a moment in time to go ahead and plan more strategically, proactively, to arrange our affairs in a more advantageous way for our goals.
Yeah, I mean, with the new deductions we got, the new tax laws, as far as the pillars of income, we need to go ahead and map that out. And if we can do a Roth conversion, we need to do it. We need to do the things that we need to do to minimize our taxes. But as you said, Peter, if we leave a large estate to our kids, we're leaving them a tax bill that's got to be paid over 10 years. That's going to affect their income every year. It's also going to affect what they pay for their health care through the exchange or wherever they're getting it. So we're creating a lot of things for them that we really don't want to have, but there's no way to get around it unless we do these conversions, get into tax-free instruments so that the money can, at least whatever we make on it, we've already paid the taxes on it.
Well, again, that's why you need a plan, ladies and gentlemen, addressing all 5 pillars. And many people have done a good job in several of these areas, but there's often areas that are missing or have been overlooked or actually specifically set up that work against us. And John Kuykendall, the team from GulfCoast Financial Services, believe that everybody should have the opportunity to review how they've arranged their affairs, to optimize and focus in on these important pillars of your financial future. If you would like to get that financially focused written retirement income plan put together, pick up the phone and give them a call, 386-755-9018. That is 386-755-9018. It is a complimentary courtesy service to put that written plan together, the financially focused written plan for you, a personalized plan, your specific situation, your goals, with a long-term perspective and diversified strategies to help you get there. So give a call, 386-755-9018. And if you tune into the program, we always appreciate that. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends that may need this important information. They will appreciate it as well. But John, we always appreciate your take, your perspective on things and keeping us financially focused.
Thank you, Peter. I hope people out there will listen to this and come in and give us a call so we can work up one of those plans for them. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and tune in for more financial focus by visiting GulfCoastFinancial.net. The information presented on this program is provided for informational purposes only, without warranty of accuracy, completeness, or suitability for a particular purpose. This program is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. This information is general in nature and not specific enough to be construed as advice. You should not make any decision based on the information presented on this program without independent consultation with an appropriately licensed professional or competent advisor. Investment in securities or the market involves a potential risk for loss of principal. Trading, therefore, may not be suitable for all listeners. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Withdrawals of growth from annuities may be taxable as ordinary income in the year it is taken. Individuals should review contracts for specific details of the product's features and costs. Early withdrawals may subject the owner to penalties, fees, or taxes. John Kuykendall is registered with and securities are offered through Kovac Securities Inc., member FINRA SIPC, found online at www.kovacsecurities.com. Advisory services are offered through GulfCoast Financial Services Inc., a registered investment advisor in Florida. GulfCoast Financial Services Inc. is not affiliated with Kovac Securities Inc. or Kovac Advisors Inc. Past performance is not indicative of future results. All investing involves risk. Investment decisions should be based on your own goals, time horizon, and tolerance for risk. Due to various factors including changing market conditions and/or applicable laws, the content may no longer be reflective of current opinions or positions. GulfCoast Financial Services Inc. has been named as Best of the Best since 2015 in the category of Best Financial Advisor in the Lake City, Florida area. The award was based on receiving the most votes in this category from a survey offered and tabulated by the Lake City Reporter. No direct or indirect compensation was provided to the Lake City Reporter and/or any raters, and the award is not contingent on future direct or indirect compensation offered to the newspaper and/or raters. Portfolio performance is not a criterion, and voting is open to any readers of the newspaper.